on, guys? Welcome back to Cherry Picking. Today's video, we got buy, hold, and sell fantasy hockey goalies. So I'm going to be going through 5 goalies that are 2 of them top 15, or 3 of them actually top 15 in fantasy hockey scoring, according to Yahoo scoring, and then 2 guys that are a little bit further down the list that I think you can try and trade for right now that will really help you as you get near the playoffs of your fantasy hockey playoffs. But we're going to be looking at some of the goalie metrics that these guys have. One of the ones that I'll be throwing, or term you'll hear me throw around a lot in this video, is goal saved above expected. This, in my opinion, is the best metric to evaluate goaltenders because it's actually based on their skill. It's based on the expected goals model that values shots against differently based on their quality instead of just quantity. Accounts for everything that goals saved above average has in it, but without assuming that all goalies face equally amount of shots. So I talked about Sam Montembeault in one of the videos earlier this week as a must-add. One of the reasons being is that he's helping Montreal win and win close games against pretty good teams, and he's getting a ton of shots, but they're high-quality shots. So he's actually playing outstanding right now, probably one of the best goaltenders we've seen the last 2 weeks just in the NHL in terms of save percentage and goals saved above expected as well. So let's get right into it. The first guy we're going to be looking at is Logan Thompson, who's actually just under or just in that top 10 for fantasy hockey goalies this year. He has 33 starts so far, backup being Adin Hill over in Vegas. He has 19 wins, a .271 goals against average, .912 save percentage, and then 2 shutouts. And we're looking at a goal saved above expected mark for the season at negative 2.9. Now, we saw Logan Thompson have a terrific start to the season. He was a top 5 fantasy hockey goalie when Vegas got started in October and November, but we've seen a completely different goalie since December. He has a losing record since then at 7-9-2 on a Vegas team that isn't bad. They maybe went through a stretch where they weren't playing very well, but it goes to show just how well that this Vegas defense needs to play for Thompson to put up those type of numbers that we saw early in the season. You know, guys like Shea Theodore have been out, Pietrangelo have been out, so this defense hasn't been as good as what we've used to seeing on paper and on the ice. There's just a couple of injuries like other teams are plagued with. So over the past month, though, he has the 11th worst goal saved above expected at -4. So he's really not helping his team win right now. They have the luxury of playing in a pretty easy division, some people say, but those offenses are loaded in that division. You're looking at Team Edmonton Oilers, Calgary Flames, Seattle's offense has been a surprise this year, and then the LA Kings as well. So he's not maybe dealt the easiest hand, maybe a hand that people thought it was much easier at the beginning of the season, but starting to turn a little bit here. And over the past month, though, he's 25th in goals against average. So you're really not getting anywhere near top 10 fantasy goalie at this point. I don't think you should drop Logan Thompson by any means, but I think you can try and trade him for maybe some of the guys that I'll be talking about later on in this video. All right, so we are selling Carter Hart without a doubt right now. Let's just look at the trajectory of his season, and you guys can kind of be the judge of why he's a must-sell. It's pretty obvious when you break it down month to month. So we look at October. He was 5-0-1. A .938 save percentage, and a 2.31 goals against average. Very solid numbers, was a top 3 goalie in the NHL at the beginning of the season. The Flyers were having a great start to the year. You look at November, numbers started to dive a little bit, especially in the wins category, 2-5-3, a .900 save percentage, and then a goals against average just under 3 at 2.99. Decent numbers, but definitely, as I mentioned, starting to drop off. Look at December, 3-6-2, a .900 save percentage, and a goals against average. Finally above 3 here, 3.15. Same, but still pretty shit now. And then January, 4-3-1, so good record, but a .900 save percentage and a 3.23 goals against average. So you see really his goals against average too, it's just gotten from month by month by month, it's just gotten much worse. And I think at the beginning of the season, this Flyers team was playing above average, above what was expected of them. I don't think anyone thought they were going to be a contender in the Metro, let alone be first for like pretty much the entire month of October. So I think everyone kind of expected them to regress for sure. I mentioned his goals against average, and now you're looking at the last month for Carter Hart. His goals saved above expected is 12th worst in the NHL at -3.8. You have already Hart playing in a really tough Metro division, and now the playoff race is heating up. You know, the Capitals and Penguins are fighting for that wild card spot, so the wins for those playoff teams are just, the games are just going to get tougher and tougher. Philadelphia, they're probably honestly want to lose at this point because there's such a high skilled draft coming up. You know, you want to get the best position possible in the NHL lottery. So in my opinion, Carter Hart, big time sell right now. All right, the next guy we're going to be talking about here, Vitek Vanecek on the New Jersey Devils. If you've been watching the show, you'd know that I'm a big fan of this New Jersey Devils team, have been since the beginning of the season. And at the beginning of the season, one of their biggest problems was goaltending, but Vanecek has come in finally to that starter role and has filled it as Lindy Ruff brought him in to do so in the offseason. He's 14th ranked among fantasy hockey goalies, which I think's a little low personally. You look at his numbers over the last month, I think he's probably the second best goalie in the NHL over last month, only behind Jussi Saros. He has the second best goal saved above expected over that same time frame. And then if you look at the month of January, he's a perfect 7-0 with a .930 save percentage and a goals against average just above 2 at 2.08. So that's really solid numbers. And the reason I know Vanecek's actually playing well right now and not just a product of a good defensive team, New Jersey's defensive numbers were much better at the beginning of the season. We're seeing them kind of reel a little bit here. They were putting up like really solid defensive numbers in the first half of the season. But since this second half of December and in January here, they're relying a little bit more on their offense, but they can do that because Vanecek has been playing so well. Perfect example is that most recent game against Vegas Golden Knights. Both goalies were playing really well, but Vanecek definitely held his own. And then they ended up tying it late game and winning in overtime. So those are the kind of games that Vanecek is winning for the Devils now, something we really didn't see at the beginning of the season. One of the cases that I can bring up too, the Devils have been outshot in 4 of the last 7 games. So Vanecek's really being that guy in net, that solid rock that they need right now to continue this playoff push that they're doing. And as I mentioned, a very tough Metropolitan division. So he's a hold right now for me. I say that because it might be tough to trade for him because his value's at a really high spot right now. But if people are trying to get him off your team, keep him for the rest of the season. All right, so the first guy we're buying in this video is actually Stuart Skinner on the Edmonton Oilers. Might be a surprise. You know, goaltending for the Oilers has been a struggle for the past, 6 years. It seems like ever since McDavid has been there. But I think Stuart Skinner would be a really solid add if you're looking for a goaltender right now. I think he's a guy that you can honestly get at a discount. For one, them being, there's obviously a little bit of a risk with Jack Campbell playing on this Oilers team as well. You know, they signed him in the offseason, a guy they wanted to be a starter, and he just hasn't panned out. But he has been playing a little bit better. But looking at Skinner's number, he has 26 starts, 13 wins, so solid to this point. But looking at his goals saved above expected throughout the entire season, he's 10th in the NHL at 12.8. You look at Jack Campbell, he's 4th worst in the NHL at negative 18.5. So we're seeing, yes, Jack Campbell just won 6 straight with the Oilers, but I would say, something opposite of what the Devils have been doing. The Oilers' defensive play has been much better as of late since the new year. They're allowing fewer scoring chances and fewer shots than they have at any point of the season. And then they also did play in that 6 games. They played some pretty good teams. They beat the Kraken, they beat Vegas, but they did also just beat the wheels off Anaheim and San Jose. So I think Jay Woodcroft would be silly to let Skinner sit on the bench for the rest of the season here. I think he's been the much better goaltender when both of them have been healthy. He's finally healthy again. And as I mentioned at the beginning of when I started this rant, I think you can get him, Stuart Skinner, a little bit of a discount here because Jack Campbell's been playing a little bit better. He's just coming back from injury. I don't think he's on too many people's radars, but I think this Edmonton team is really going to make a push in the second half of the season, and I think Stuart Skinner is actually going to be one of the big reasons for that. Okay, so the last guy we're going to be buying is Filip Gustavsson. So he's only started 18 games for the Minnesota Wild this year, but he has 11 wins, a 226 goals against average, and a goal saved above expected of around 9, which is 17th in the NHL, which is pretty solid considering he was the sole backup of this Wild team at the beginning of the season. Fleury wasn't playing too well, and Gustafsson kind of taking advantage of that, and especially over the last month, we've seen Fleury kind of in and out of the lineup, not playing his best, but Gustafsson kind of taking advantage of Fleury's mishaps here, taking advantage of this opportunity. Over the last month, he's 12th in goals saved above expected, but he also played his worst game probably of the last 30 days in his most recent game against Florida, where he let in, I think, 4 or 5 goals. So those numbers are actually better. It's just his most recent game was a little bit of a slip up. But you look at December, Gustafsson was 5-1 with a .930 save percentage, a goals against average of below 2 at 1.98, and a shutout. So he goes to prove when he's given that somewhat of a starter role, 6 starts in 1 month, it's pretty solid. He does really well with it, especially on a team like the Minnesota Wild. Like, they have a great back end. They have guys like Jared Spurgeon, very defensive-minded, Matt Dumba, who's playing a little bit more defensive recently, and then Kalen Addison and a couple other depth guys that play really well in this Minnesota Wild team. And even their forwards, Dean Evison kind of preaches that kind of style of hockey. So you're looking at a goalie right now who's currently ranked 28th among fantasy hockey goals, who's nowhere near that value, in my opinion. I think, if you look at his numbers in December and even January, those are top 10, top 15 fantasy hockey numbers, and I think he's going to be a big reason why this Wild team get going in the second half of the season. I think they're going to put a little bit more faith in him. He's going to have a much bigger role, so if you can get Gustafsson, whether by adding him or even trading him, because he won't be on anyone's radar, really, I think he's a really good pickup. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you think there's any other goalies you want me to talk about, to whether buy, hold, or sell on them. I'll be very active in the comments. Be sure to join the Discord too, because we're always going over some fantasy hockey talk over there, and I'll see you guys in the next video.